Imagine the city of Chicago in 1871, engulfed in a fire so fierce it claimed hundreds of lives and reduced 4 square miles of the city to ashes. This was the infamous Great Chicago Fire, a calamity of monumental proportions that forever altered the landscape of the city. The flames danced in the wind, consuming everything in their path, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. Wooden houses, factories, and even schools were no match for the inferno that raged for 2 days straight. The city, once bustling with life, was rendered a desolate wasteland. The loss of life and property was unimaginable. The fire's intensity was such that it seemed to have a life of its own, a monstrous entity feasting on the city. Yet on this very day, an even more devastating fire was raging in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, a fire so intense it remains the deadliest in U.S. history. While Chicago was burning, Peshtigo was facing an even more catastrophic event. On the very same day, October 8, 1871, the small town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin, was engulfed in what would become the deadliest fire in United States history. This wasn't just a blaze, it was a firestorm, a conflagration so intense it jumped miles over the waters of Green Bay and the Peshtigo River itself, turning both sides of the inlet town into an inferno. But the fire's lethal reach didn't stop there. It also leaped across Lake Michigan, setting the cities of Holland and Manistee alight and consuming vast stretches of forest. In the end, an astounding 1,875 square miles of forest were turned to ash. 12 communities were wiped off the map, and between 1,200 and 2,500 lives were tragically lost. Let's delve into the timeline of the Peshtigo fire, a disaster largely forgotten by history. The evening of October 8, 1871, was like any other in Peshtigo until it wasn't. The people of Peshtigo, a flourishing logging town in Wisconsin, were going about their daily routines, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. The day had been unusually warm and dry, the air heavy with the scent of pine from the surrounding forest, a constant reminder of the town's primary industry. In the forest's depths, small fires, set intentionally by settlers to clear land for farming and railway lines, were smoldering. These fires were a common sight and were usually kept under control. But on this fateful evening, they began to behave differently. The strong winds that began to blow acted as bellows, fanning these small fires into a rapidly spreading inferno. In the blink of an eye, what was once controlled and familiar turned into a monstrous, uncontrollable beast. The fire spread with astonishing speed, fueled by the dry vegetation and the gusty winds. The flames, so fierce and unnaturally bright, painted the night sky in hues of orange and red, casting an eerie glow over the town. The people of Peshtigo were taken by surprise. This wasn't a routine forest fire. This was something they had never seen or imagined before. The fire was relentless, consuming everything in its path: homes, farms, businesses, and the very trees that were the town's lifeblood. Panic set in as the townsfolk tried to comprehend the scale of the disaster that was unfolding before their eyes. The fire showed no signs of stopping. It jumped rivers, it leapt across Green Bay. It was everywhere. It was as though the whole world was aflame. The fire was so intense that it created its own weather, a firestorm of epic proportions. The residents could only watch in horror and disbelief as their beloved town was reduced to ashes. As the fire grew, so did its intensity, leading to unprecedented events. The Peshtigo fire, as it would come to be known, was just beginning to show its true power. Little did the people of Peshtigo know, the worst was yet to come. The Peshtigo fire didn't merely burn, it created a firestorm. Imagine a blaze so fierce, so relentless that it defied the laws of nature. The Peshtigo fire was not just any fire, it was a firestorm, a violent and destructive force that consumed everything in its path, dwarfing the flames of a regular wildfire. This firestorm was so powerful that it leaped over bodies of water. Imagine that for a moment. Fire, a force that is typically quenched by water, hurtling over it with such intensity that it continued its path of destruction on the other side. It jumped several miles over the waters of Green Bay and burned parts of the Dore Peninsula. It even leaped over the Peshtigo River itself, burning on both sides of the inlet town. But the firestorm didn't stop there. It did something even more incredible, something that sounds almost like a scene out of a disaster movie. The firestorm generated a tornado, a vortex of fire and wind so strong that it tossed rail cars and houses into the air. The survivors reported witnessing this awe-inspiring and terrifying spectacle, a testament to the unimaginable power of the firestorm. This was not a fire, it was an all-consuming beast, a relentless monster that devoured forests, towns, and anything else that stood in its path. It was a force of nature that was both captivating and terrifying, a spectacle of raw power and destruction. The firestorm left a trail of devastation in its wake. It consumed 1,875 square miles of forest and destroyed 12 communities. Between 1,200 and 2,500 people are believed to have lost their lives in this disaster, a testament to the destructive power of the firestorm. In the face of such a monstrous force, survival seemed nearly impossible. This was the reality of the Peshtigo fire, a firestorm that will forever be remembered as one of the most devastating in history. In the heart of the inferno, the people of Peshtigo fought for their lives. The fiery maw of the Peshtigo fire was an indiscriminate beast, consuming everything in its path. But amid the chaos, the human spirit shone through, a beacon of resilience and survival against the odds. As the firestorm raged, the residents of Peshtigo made desperate attempts to escape the unrelenting flames. Their homes and livelihoods were being reduced to ash, their town obliterated in the blink of an eye. Yet, in the face of such terrifying odds, they clung to the hope of survival, their will to live proving stronger than the fear of the fiery tempest that surrounded them. For many, their only hope lay in the bodies of water nearby. The Peshtigo River, once a tranquil haven, became a lifeline in the face of the fiery onslaught. Men, women, and children plunged into the chilling waters, their bodies shrouded in smoke and ash. There, amid the icy currents, they sought refuge from the blazing inferno that raged around them. But the river was not the only sanctuary. Some sought refuge in wells, the cold, damp darkness, a stark contrast to the searing heat of the firestorm. Others found solace in nearby ponds and lakes, their surfaces reflecting the apocalyptic scenes unfolding around them. Yet survival was not guaranteed. The fire was relentless, its flames leaping across the river, consuming both sides of the inlet town. Some people, caught in the crossfire, were not so fortunate. The frigid waters that promised salvation also bore the risk of hypothermia. Others, overwhelmed by the smoke and heat, succumbed to the river's relentless currents. The fight for survival was a cruel game of chance in the face of the Peshtigo fire. The inferno was indiscriminate, claiming the lives of the young and old, the strong and the weak. Those who sought refuge in the water faced a grim choice: risk drowning or succumb to the cold. The fire didn't discriminate, claiming the lives of those who drowned or succumbed to the cold. It was a harrowing testament to the ferocity of nature and the fragile thread by which life hangs in the face of such cataclysmic events. When the flames finally died down, the scale of the devastation was unimaginable. A once thriving region was now a smoky, charred landscape. The aftermath of the Peshtigo fire was a scene of utter desolation. An estimated 1,200 to 2,500 lives were lost, making it the most lethal fire in United States history. However, the exact number of casualties remains uncertain, as the fire incinerated all records and most of the people who could have reported the missing. The fire had consumed a staggering 1,875 square miles of forest, an area larger than Rhode Island. 12 communities were wiped off the map, their buildings, infrastructure, and livelihoods reduced to ashes. Among them, the town of Peshtigo was hit hardest, with barely a structure left standing. The catastrophe didn't just end with the extinguishing of the flames. The survivors faced a grim reality. Many were left homeless, their possessions gone, their families and friends missing or deceased. The region's economy was in ruins, with its lumber industry, the backbone of local livelihoods, decimated. Yet, amidst the tragedy, stories of resilience and hope emerged. People banded together to rebuild their lives and their communities. Aid poured in from across the country, providing much-needed relief and support. Over time, the forests regrew, the towns were rebuilt, and the scars of the fire began to fade. However, the memory of that fateful day in October 1871 remained etched in the minds of the survivors and their descendants. Today, the Peshtigo Fire Museum stands as a testament to the disaster, housing artifacts recovered from the ashes and telling the stories of those who lived and died in the fire. It serves as a poignant reminder of the destructive power of wildfires and the importance of fire safety and prevention measures. The Peshtigo Fire, a disaster overshadowed by the Great Chicago Fire, remains a poignant reminder of nature's fury. It's a chapter in history that underscores the human capacity for survival and resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity.